Hey guys, it's your host Kay Did of Hear Our Voices. Thank you for coming back one more time to listen to the podcast. I hope you're enjoying so far in season 4. We have come a long way. And if you were here from the beginning, there's little ups and downs, but I think we're getting it kind of together at this moment. And we're just going to be bigger and better in 2024. So happy New Year if I didn't say that in the last podcast before this. And I have a little things to tell you guys. So please follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I want to say also YouTube. So we are usually on Twitter and Instagram the most out of all the probably the social medias. Everything will be down below. Also, if you want to talk to me down anytime, I'm always up literally all the time. If you have any questions, I am here to help you. If I don't know something, I would ask somebody who does this job all the time to help you, and I make sure you get the right and proper information because it's important to give people right information. To get wrong information does not help anybody. So I make sure I do that for, I do diligence, guys. So my information also will be in the link tree down below. And we'll get into the interview today. So we actually have a person from the Bridge Project, and she'll tell you more about what the Bridge Project actually does. And guys, I tried, I promise. I want to say Syntyché. I feel like I pronounced it out properly. Syntyché. I feel like I said that wrong. Guys, I tried. But I want her to tell you her name and how the proper pronunciation for it.
Thank you, my friend. My name is Syntyché Francella. So thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here.
Thank you for being on. This program I knew about, it came out a couple of years ago, and it's actually a cash program for moms she's going to tell you more about it. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Bridge Project and what it does and how did it start actually?
I just love to hear you talk. So I just was hoping that you would just keep going and just explain it, make my life easy. But the Bridge Project started in New York City in 2021 to address the profound need and awareness that child poverty exists in this country. And it was a response to not only what was happening during COVID, where we just saw this large need within communities throughout the country, but we focused on New York City. And it provides cash allowance to new and expected moms in New York City up to $100,000. We've expanded into Rochester and Buffalo. So we're really excited about our growth. And it's this understanding that the first 3 years, the first 1,000 days of a baby's life is a beautiful time, right? Of curiosity and development and joy and right.
Right.
And
It is.
and as I share, right, and I think about a baby laughing, right? Like I was on the train this morning and just thinking about babies laughter and how infectious it is, right? And wanting that to be more of the experience for babies and families in New York City, right? So it's this, yes, let's end childhood poverty, right? Every kid deserves a chance, right?
They
Every new
do.
mom and mother deserves this opportunity just by being born, right? Like to
Right.
have a joyful childhood, to have access to diapers, right? To have access to formula when you need it, right? And so the 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 work is around doing that by offering unconditional cash allowance to moms. Because when we have better kids, the planet's better, man. Like, let's have more giggling babies, please.
That's so true. So I'm gonna go back from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Did you guys only take moms initially who were in shelter, or was it living in like proper housing? Not like a roof over your head kind of proper housing.
Understood. Yeah, very good question. So initially, the program wasn't focused, and still isn't necessarily focused to moms that are homeless. And thank you for schooling me before the podcast on using homeless versus unhoused. That should be an outtake because that was some good medicine. I appreciate you for schooling me on that. Um, so the focus wasn't necessarily on homeless moms. It really was around looking at the income, the household income that moms had. And so
Right.
we have a threshold for that, which is about $50,000 or less here in New York, 52,000 actually, right? And
Right.
so when you think about a mom in New York City, what that looks like in terms of your bag, so to speak,
Right.
right? Like, so it was that was what determined at least narrowed down the demographic of person we were looking at, right? Like a mother that had this particular income, how many, right now it's her first child, right? Um, and so on and so forth. At least 18 years old is also another requirement. But that was the requirement. And then when you think about, well, who are these moms? Where do they work, right?
Right.
Which is also really interesting, right? Like we have moms in our program that are homeless, and we have moms that work full-time jobs, right? So, but that income threshold really helped us, and just data driven, right?
Right.
Determine who would benefit most from this unconditional cash allowance.
You know what's very interesting is that you put in there that some people have full-time jobs and they still are not making that much money. That's sad. That a whole person, I even forget if about the baby. You know, we love the babies here, of course, because I have
Yeah,
two of
yeah,
my own. But it's just like a person's making this much money and it's not even over 52,000. That's no in New York City, that's no money. That's like literally that's nothing. You can
mhm.
you can survive, of course, but it's like, is it a life? I'm not gonna say you cannot be happy because you definitely can. Money is not or and thing, but it's like that money doesn't go as far as you might think it did 10 or 15 years ago. And then to add a baby onto
Right.
that and the other things that baby bring, diapers, bottles, wipes, things like that, special soap, because they can't use the regular soap that we do because we're adults. They have to use sensitive soap for their skin and diaper rash cream, all these things. And it's like, wow, thank
Yeah.
God for this program. Like,
Yeah, no, real, it's real. And something you said just made me think about, like, there's surviving and then there's thriving, right? And
right,
so there's a huge difference in terms of being a mom feeling resourced and being a mom that doesn't feel resourced, right? And
right.
what that looks like in terms of access to food, access to formula, right? Like, we had a formula shortage in this country. Like,
Yes,
how
we
weird is
did.
that? You
Oh
know what
my
I'm
God, I can
saying?
imagine.
So when you talk about, a salary, right? You can make $52,000 and your rent is $2,500. I mean, it's New York City, right? And that could be
Right.
a one bedroom, right?
A
Um,
studio at this point.
if you don't preach. And so, right? And so when you think about formula, when you think about diapers, when you think about baby wipes, we also think about that from the lens of that child not having any additional or special needs, right? When you layer that
Right.
with a young baby that might have special needs, um, that changes everything. Now you're seeing a specialist. Now you're seeing,
Hmm.
a coach. Now you have to go across this way because the best person for that person is the pediatrician referred that person. And so you have all of these responsibilities and commitments. And anytime you
Right.
talk about navigating a city, you're talking about needing financial resources, right? Whether you have to
Right.
take the bus, the train, the taxi, and who wants to be on the metro with a newborn, with everybody breathing on this beautiful new human
Mm-hmm.
that's in the world, our side, right? Like, so I think when we let me be honest, when I became a new mom, I did not fully appreciate all the things that nobody put in the book, right?
Right.
It wasn't just what to expect when to expect it. It's what you don't even know that it could happen to you
Exactly.
expected, right? And you're a mom of multiple, so
Right.
from lived experience that what the first human needed, regardless of gender, right, is
Right.
completely different and can be completely different than the other one needs, for sure.
That's true. Like example, people don't think, like you say, special needs, that a special need child might be in diapers longer than a regular child. I'm not saying that all kids are great, but when a child has a special need, they can't speak or they do stuff like that, they're gonna be in Pampers longer. Because my daughter right now, because she also took longer to speak, she's in diapers longer than my other daughter. She'll poop at school. I think it's probably just me because you know how the kids are. They're great at school. When they come home, it's a different person you're talking to. But when a child does have an extra little, something more about them, is more work to go into that child. You have to put in more energy compared to a child
Mm.
who's just as they will say normal or atypical. I think I'm not sure the proper word for that or not, but it requires more, and it's usually more years of that particular thing because they can't do themselves. They
Yeah,
can't bathe themselves by themselves. It's a lot more work goes into
for
it.
sure, for sure, and the unpaid emotional labor that mothers do, right? Like,
Yes,
the let me phrase that, not unpaid, the often seemingly uncompensated
yes.
emotional labor, right?
Hmm.
And when I say uncompensated, not in terms of like the family unit or that like ecosystem, but more so like in terms of labor, right? Like, so you understand that I have to do this before I get here at 9 o'clock, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
right? And when I come into the office and you talking to me about the copy machine, I'm
Hmm.
feeling a little bit away, right?
Right. It's so true. People do
Right?
not think about what it goes into that whole thing. They think, oh, you should be up at 9 o'clock. And I'm already not a morning person. People might think I am, but I'm not chipper at 9 o'clock. My chipperness really cuts in at 12. So you have to do all these things. I wake up about
Yeah.
5:45 in the morning to get my first daughter to school. Well, I
Right.
take both of them like school and daycare because the ages are different. And it takes so much just to do what you got to do, and then plus be clocked into work and make sure your brain is working for work and all these things. And to get to me getting that financial help, it takes almost a load of burden off of you. Because when
Of
you don't have
course.
money, it's a burden. It's a burden. When you don't know
Yes.
where your child's next meal is going to come from or diapers. Can you imagine? Because this happened to me in
Yes.
Jamaica by accident. And it even happened to me, like, granted, I was still homeless, but I had money for the Pampers, but I was in the country of Jamaica. And I didn't have Pampers for my daughter. I told my husband to get Pampers. He didn't get it in time. Our daughter is using a pad. While the baby, because the Pampers wasn't there yet, and the
Yeah.
store's not like here in New York. You have to go a little ways to get the
Yeah.
proper
Yeah.
size for your child. So it's like
Yeah.
this is a thing, and people don't
Yeah.
understand. Money can do a lot. It's not. It doesn't solve all problems, but it does
No.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, you know, when I think about the Bridge Project, right? And
Right.
my colleagues are brilliant, like hands down. Like they, I've heard them on podcasts and interviews, and they spit the data. You know what I mean? I'm not. I have to have my notes for my data. But the data that I've gathered, right, if you will, is that it just brings a softness to a mother's life and a child's life, right? Like even for our moms that are homeless that are still in the shelter, it's
Right.
knowing that they have this so that they can take their kid out to eat instead of, right? That they can insert whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so there's
Right.
a softness to it that helps the mind body nervous system of mom and baby, right? And so
Right.
baby that giggles is the baby that giggles because there's space in the household to be able to have joy because all the adults
Hmm.
aren't stressed the heck out. You know what I mean? Like,
For
you
sure.
know what I'm
Oh my
saying?
gosh.
Like, Uncle Jeffrey is under the happier when the stew piece is on the table. You know what I mean? You know?
Right.
You understand? So I just kind of feel like there's space. It creates space for possibility, right? Like
Right.
that's what being resourced is about. Like, what else could I do besides pay bills? What else could I offer to my child instead of worry? Oh, I could sit down and play with them, right? And our moms have talked about
Hmm.
that. Like, instead of rushing back to work after 6 weeks, they're now able to stay home, or work a part-time
Hmm.
job instead of a full-time job, and how
Right.
that helps that mother show up differently and just creates a whole different, not just environment, a whole different ecosystem for this
Right.
human to live in. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so good.
I
It's
think
so
people
good.
don't think that, oh, you're only there for the baby, but mom, especially when people have babies, they have postpartum, all these things. People don't think that moms sometimes need a break. Some people they know like mom need a break, of course, but they think, oh, you should just be so happy. This is no, but we got to think about realistic things. How is this going to work? And if we have example money to go outside to get like even especially in the shelter, get something from the restaurant just to make you feel good, or get your hair done. I always say, get your hair done, get your nails done,
Get your
because
nails
these
done.
small things you might think it does cost money to get it done, but it makes you happy when people look good. They feel good,
Right.
and that helps the baby because the baby feeds off the energy of who's around it. So
Right.
if mommy is
And
sad and depressed, yes, you could say,
no, no, no. If mommy's sad and depressed, I want you to finish that thought. If
if
mommy's
mommy
sad
is sad and depressed, baby's gonna also. People don't think that babies can get depressed or sad, but the baby lived inside the mom, so it
that's right.
knows it has a tie with that mom. When the baby's
Right.
out, the tie is just not broken. Like their connection in a way is broken, but it's
Right.
not fully broken because they're
Yeah,
still right there,
for
and
sure.
it can be very traumatic for a child, and we just got to think about those things. But yes,
Yeah, and thinking about like now this mom, this family is a little bit more resourced, and so now that child's relationship and awareness of money and resources is different, right? And
right.
so it's about the modeling as well. Like what I hear you saying is so true, right? Like this unspoken component of parenting,
Hmm.
right, where our children or if we're caregivers, that young child is picking up on our energy. They can read a room, they can feel a vibe, like you know what I mean. And if the
They
vibe is
do.
constantly stressful, then we've created
Hmm.
an environment where that child is constantly stressed, right? Because that kid is responding to us. So, to your point, it's that nuance of a caregiving environment. I just made that up. It's the nuance. It sounds good, don't it?
It does though. It's a real thing. We not make it's a real thing, guys. Take it.
Right, but it's the nuance of that caregiving environment that can help perpetuate those feelings of stress and worry, and that's not creative, right? Like when we're worrying and we're stressing, we can't come up with creative ideas, like and so being able to be softer, right, goes back to being softer, just creating this opportunity for young moms and new moms to be able to just have a little bit more softness, and it's guaranteed, right? So in your mind, like it's coming for 3 years, you have this. What a gift.
It is. I wish I could have got it. I wish it was out when my baby was that young. I wish my daughter was born in 2015, but it would have been, oh my gosh.
My baby was born in 2002.
Oh. Congrats.
I was a New York City public school teacher, right? When my son was when my son was born, and I would have qualified for this program. So just think about that.
Wow.
Right? Just when we think about poverty, right, and not be a resource, like we get this image in our head from I don't know, right? But I was a New York City public school teacher. Wow. I had a city job.
I tell people all the time. I had a
city job, right? And I would have qualified for that program. And based on the income requirements, city workers do in fact qualify for our program.
Let's get into some data. As I always I tell you this almost in every podcast. People, prime example right here. People don't understand that city workers do not make that much money. They say, oh my God, they have all these benefits. I'm not saying all positions, but example, a teacher, in my mind, we know they don't get paid enough. They should be getting paid way more because they have to deal with a lot of craziness in the classroom and all these things will have to happen. So
hold on. Because I was a teacher. Before we even go to the craziness, right? Like, and I feel like yes, and in order to be a classroom teacher, to stand up in front of those people's children, a teacher needs to have a master's degree.
Right.
So I had more joy than I did madness, and I worked in urban schools, right? So so yes, and in order to keep my job, I had to have a master's degree.
Right. That costs money.
Should not be financially compensated for that.
Right. Why are teachers in debt?
It's asking for a friend, right? So to your point, right? It's yes, and the expectation of the profession is that I'm highly credentialed based on the standards that you say make me highly credentialed, yet you don't want to compensate me for that.
That's the problem. And teachers have good benefits from what I understand. I know a couple of teachers, they stay in it just because of the benefits, but it's like you get benefits, yes, but are you able to stay above water? We're helping mold the mind of children, but yet I'm drowning. Water is coming into my throat while I'm feeding their child all these things. Who's helping me? And that's a problem.
Yeah.
We need to be able to give people who are helping others proper, like they need to get paid properly. And it need to go up I know it does go up after, but for New York City, we need to pay people better in general. For the example, the COLA, we're trying to work on these things. I know minimum wage went up a dollar. $1 for New York City is not a lot. $16, I thought it'd be 20 something. What is $16? Because if you're on welfare, I know it's a different tangent, guy, but if you're on welfare and you have $16, they want to kick you off of that, but yet you really can afford to live where you are. So it doesn't make sense how the system is really rolling, but that's just beside the point. But I want to say with some data, a lot of people who are in shelter, a lot of them have city jobs. I'm not saying every one of them, but I want to say it's 48 or 49% of people not. I want to say this data is before we had the migrant switch, where they are a higher population in shelter. But before that, the people in shelter were 48 to 49% city workers. That's a lot of people. That's almost half. That's a problem. That's saying that's something in our system in New York City. I'm not even going to go to America. In New York City is broken. That means we're not getting paid enough. People to even get paid for we always tell people in school, that's what teachers tell us. We need food, we need shelter, and water. That's like the basic threes we need to really stay, grounded and be okay. You can still be depressed in your house, but at least we have shelter over your head. If we can afford one of the basic things, that's a problem. But I digress.
No, I think I think it's all interconnected, right? Like
Yes.
how right, and I think part of the Bridge Project's magic, in my opinion, is looking at that and asking questions like, okay, how can we show up in a way that's actually helpful, right? And knowing that truth, right? Knowing that data, then we know that if you're given a cash allowance, moms are just given the cash. Let
Right.
that mother decide what is best for her and her family. Let that mother decide what her and how her and her family are going to use those resources so that they can move from surviving to thriving along that spectrum in whatever way that looks like, right? And of course, we want, to eradicate child poverty. We want every family to be living in a home and in a community that they like, all the things.
Right.
Yes, and whatever, we recognize the facts, right? And we look at the data. Wherever that mom is in that moment in time and space, we know that this is helpful, and we know that this is helpful because moms are able to save for emergency funding. Moms are able to buy
Right.
formula, especially if the child is has a reaction to formula that may be offered for WIC services, which is amazing, right? But you know, maybe being in diapers longer, moms are able to supplement their rent, pay a family member who's watching their child, right? So sometimes even that beautiful story
Mm-hmm.
of, my aunt or my cousin or my titi watches the babies, and now I'm able to give her a little something
Right.
because, right? And so those, to save up for school or training or a birthday party or hosting, dinners. We know that when we give moms the money to do whatever it is best for them, then whatever is best for the child is also present.
It's so true. So I want to say this is unconditional. It doesn't matter what people use the money for. You
Yeah,
guys are you guys not tracking it? Nothing like that.
no, we
That's
mind our
great.
business. Yeah. Yeah. And it's data driven, right? Like, it's data driven. We know that when you give moms the money, they do what they need to do with it, and it's amazing, right?
Right.
So just give them the money. Give them the money and let
Literally.
them do what they need to do because they know what they need, right? They're the
Right.
CEOs. When you run a household, listen, that's a
Yes.
whole organization, a
It really
corporation.
is though. It really is. We should get a certificate after our child turns 18. As long as they're alive.
You said a
We should get a
certificate.
whole certificate.
Hilarious.
I'm
Motherhood
just,
is a
you get
certificate
so much.
program.
It's so much you learn
Hilarious.
from being a mom. You got to do
Mm.
scheduling. I can't do hair that well. You're like hairdresser. You over here managing money. You making a whole dollar out of a quarter. It's a lot of
A
management
whole
you have to
quarter?
do.
You balling. Dollar
Right.
out of 15 cents.
Right.
Yes.
It certainly
Yes.
is. It
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah,
is.
for sure. For sure. I mean, you have human resources issues,
Mm,
right? You got case management, right?
yes.
Right?
You a therapist.
Conflict resolution, all the things.
You
All
a
the
doctor
things.
at some point because you got a band-aids gone,
Listen.
alcohol. You doing a lot. A part-time job.
Constantly. Yeah.
A full-time job. There's a lot of jobs. It never ends until
It
even
never
if I
ends.
get older.
Yeah.
Apparently, it doesn't end. I don't know yet, but
Yeah.
apparently, even when your child gets 18, it don't matter. They
Yeah.
still on your side. So
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I want to get into the qualifications for
Mm-hmm.
people who they want to join the program. 'Cause I know you named some. I'm not sure if there's any more to do, but I want people, if you are listening to this podcast or you know somebody who might want to be a part of the Bridge program, we will have everything down below
Mm-hmm.
so a person can join it. And apparently before it used to be like a certain deadline, but now I heard like it's always open. So I want to get into that and the
Yep.
qualifications to be in this part of this program.
For sure, for sure. The first thing I would say to anyone is go to the website.
Right.
Definitely go to the website because as we grow and as we expand, up-to-date information and real-time information is going to be on the website.
Right.
And I say that also because your viewership might not be listening to it in January 2024.
That's true.
So I want to give the information, but I also want to recognize that as we grow and expand, things may change, right?
That's true.
And change in the direction so that it's an opportunity, that the opportunity grows and expands for folks in New York City and New York State. So what I would say is go to our website, which is bridgeproject.org. Go to our website, bridgeproject.org. Now, if you are in New York City, and the general qualifications across the board are you're at least 18 years old. So that needs to be said off the bat. And for New York City, you have an income requirement of $52,000 or less, and you need to be a New York City resident. But go to at least 23 weeks pregnant or less. So go to the website
before you. I don't want to forget
fill out the information. No, go.
I was gonna say, how do you prove residency? How long do you have to be? Like, example, if a person came in from Florida and they was only here for like 2 months, would they qualify for residency? People do it all the time. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, they need, as long as they have a as long as they have a New York City address, mailing address. Yes. And so I was gonna say, once it is a randomized process, right? So even if a pregnant person is eligible, they're not guaranteed into the program, right? Like, so I kind of have to honor that. It's a lottery, right? So I just want to say that right now. And also, once they're accepted into the program, then there's a verification process that happens when there's onboarding. Right. So that's a second step, right? So you apply to the program. If you're selected into the program, you get in, and then there's a whole separate process that we go through where we onboard a person, and then there's the verification of residency, the verification of pregnancy, the verification of pregnancy duration, right? And so on and so on and so forth. So that happens afterwards.
I have another question.
Did that answer your question?
No, that definitely answered my question. I have another part of the question. So, example, if a person applied when they're 23 weeks, but the lottery doesn't get them until about, say, 30 weeks, would they not qualify then? Because when they initially applied, it was 23 weeks.
Right. So this is me and you on the highway, straight line, like no traffic, like perfect ideal situation. You put your indicator on, you go on the ramp, you did right. In a perfect world, when you're onboarded 23 weeks or less, when we reach out to you within a few weeks, then the onboarding process starts. So it's not necessarily about how many weeks you are when you're onboarded, but more so how many weeks were you when you applied, and then that turnaround time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right? I think that's so fair. The expectation is that if you're 23 weeks or less, you'll be within, 20, I don't want to put us in a pigeonhole, but you'll be around 27, 28, you know what I mean? You'll be within, let's just say 30 weeks around the time that we'll finally reach back out to you, and so on and so on and so forth. And it vacillates, right? We're a small company. So sometimes it may be in a hard 3 to 4 weeks we'll reach out, and sometimes it could be 5 to 6 weeks. So I want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be what you said. I would be reached out at 27 and a half weeks, and it's 29 weeks. It's like, right. Yeah, but more broadly, there's the pattern, right? Like you apply, you get an email of confirmation, which is really, really important that your application has been received.
Right.
Within a few weeks, we reach out. You'll know if you've been accepted into the program, and then it kind of flows from there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes complete sense.
Does that answer your question?
It definitely does. Also, do the moms have to be, do they have to have paperwork, like the migrants or asylum seekers or undocumented? Can they also apply for this program?
1,000% they can.
Okay.
1,000%. 1,000%.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
1,000%.
I have a question. Was that implemented recently, or that was always the rule that they have? I know when you do pilot programs, certain things cannot go, and then after the pilot, they kind of change things around depending on. Yeah.
No, this is how it was.
Oh,
wow. This was the beginning, and this is
good.
how. Yeah. This is yeah.
That's really good, because I know a lot of programs when they start out, they're like, only people with documents could come in, and then when they kind of, smooth it on over with the stakeholders, it's like, okay, not everybody can come in. So that's good that they was thought about beforehand when doing this. That's pretty cool. That's nice.
Yeah. And I think one of the beautiful things about that, right, is like our intention is to end child poverty, right? Full stop, period. Like, boom. And also we recognize that there are thresholds, there are guidelines that need to be in place in order for a program, specifically this program, to function, right? And so if we have this income requirement, right? Like, because people make in New York making $55,000 a year, they're not actually balling, right? Like,
Right.
so
Not at all.
you know, so we recognize that there's a need if you make 53.5. You know what I'm saying? But we made it 52 based on the data, but then at least we can also, right? And so when we think
Right.
about growth, it might not necessarily be this way, but it can be expansive, right? And how can we give as many women, as birthing women as possible, access to this program? And that's one way. And ultimately, we would love to see it be a part of policy
It
in this
should
country,
be.
in New York. Of course, you
It's a
know,
good program. And it's not
yeah,
like how
it is.
welfare is. Like it seemed like you make a little bit and then like just take it away. It just seemed like I think 52,000 is low, but it's high enough that a lot of people still can qualify for this particular program, which is great. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Do you
Hmm.
count, like, example, do you count if a person has a part-time job plus welfare? Because I know certain programs, like example, I have NYCHA, they want to, when I had welfare, they want to count everything that welfare gave me to kind of, but do you count all the stuff HRA might give a person plus their job, or do you count them, like HRA is a separate thing and you only count the people's jobs information?
Um, it's household income, right? So however you classify your household income and how
Okay,
is what that is considered.
all right.
Um, getting living in NYCHA is not income.
No, but HRA is like welfare?
Yes,
Like the
yes, yes,
welfare
yeah,
part, yes. How do they
yes, yes,
count?
yes.
They count that cash that HRA gives you for that.
So yeah, so if your household income will be looked at, um,
Right,
I can't speak for everybody in New York City, but to date,
right.
I haven't seen that eclipse past. you
That's true.
you know what I mean? Because you're also qualifying for other benefits like WIC, like
Right.
food stamps, and so I haven't seen that combination of lived experience that then now you're exceeding past what the threshold is for qualification. I haven't seen that yet. Do you know what I'm
I
saying?
don't think so. I'm just asking because people might
No,
I
no.
think about questions
Listen,
you might think
first of
about,
all, your
So
mind is brilliant. I'm
thank
bowing down to
you.
the genius. Your mind is
Thank
brilliant,
you.
and it is a valid question. And I think part of it too. Like I know when I was a single mom was like running the numbers, right? And so
Yes.
when you're in the system, there's this while I've never been homeless, I was on food stamps, and there was a time, right? And
Right.
there's this and it's a lived experience where it's
Right.
like the system almost makes you feel like you're getting a whole lot. like
They
like
do.
like and it's weird because it's like, oh, you get food stamp, you get this, and it's just like, but then when you run the numbers, you're like, oops.
We are at the end of the episode. Thank you for coming back to hear our voices. Thank you for listening and enjoying yourself, I hope. So please check out our social media, and I hope that this was insightful. I hope that you learned something. I hope you have a takeaway. I hope that anybody who's listening to this and qualify for this program and live in a certain boroughs and see the links down below, hopefully it's able to help you and your family. Thank you so much. Thank you for being amazing, and talk to you next time. Bye.